So I'd like to call to order the DuPage County Health and Human Services Committee. Roll call, please.
Chair Renahan.
Here.
Vice Chair Swarzy.
Here.
Member Selman. Here. Member Chaplin.
Here.
Member Dessart. Here. Member LaPlante.
We have a quorum. So today we're going to be hearing from Director Janelle Chadwick of the Care Center for the budget proposal of 2023. So thank you, Janelle, for being here. And I hope all of you, everybody on the board has the opportunity to meet with the Care Center and facilities team to hear more on the Care Center capital project. So the scope of a renovation, the upgraded facilities. So it's quite exciting to see some of the things that are going to be happening over there. And also there's, we need to have a discussion of the impact of supply chain. And that's, part of it, as we know, we can't seem to escape that. So we know the county's always been deeply committed to our care center, and this board specifically, we got together and we were able to cull together, what, $22 million between ARPA funds and others to this end. So strong backing, and like I said, as we know, current environment puts some pressure on supply chains. So I know our values have not shifted in terms of supporting the care center and our vulnerable residents and our incredibly devoted staff. So please, I urge everyone to attend a session if you can, ask questions, and let's go forward with this investment. So I'll take a motion to approve the minutes of Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. I'll take a motion on community services item FIR 32122 resolution.
So moved.
Appropriation.
Second.
Services supportive housing program PY23 $311,047. Motion and second. Questions here? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. I'll take a motion FIR 32922 resolution for community services acceptance and appropriation of the Illinois Home Weatherization Assistance Program
Second.
FY23 $349,639. Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Take a motion FIR 32422 resolution acceptance appropriation of Illinois Home Weatherization Assistance Program DOE grant FY23 $487,184 for community services. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Take a motion FIR 330-22 resolution recommendation for approval of extension of the emergency solutions grant COVID-19 response for community services. A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Moving to Community Development Commission. I will take a motion on HHSR 325-22 resolution recommendation for approval of first modification to emergency solutions grant. This is for 360 youth services, increasing the award by $185,000, extending project completion date through August 15, 2023, COVID item. So we have a motion and a second. Any questions here? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. I'll take a motion on HHSR 32622 resolution recommendation for approval of a first modification
Second.
the CDBG CV grant agreement with 360 Youth Services, increasing staffing and extending completion date through August 15, 2023. COVID item. Motion and a second. Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, that passes. Motion on
So moved.
HHSR 32722 resolution recommendation for approval of community development block grant funding increase with Carroll Stream Park District.
Second.
The amount by $400,000 for a total award of $1 million for improvement to the community park. And the motion and second, Member Chapman.
So, excuse me, I broke my throat this morning. Regarding this item, so it looks like we're increasing this by $400,000. It's going to be $1 million project for this park. So reading the packet, if we didn't put in the $400,000, the scope of the park would just be a little bit less. That's what I understand. I'm wondering what other projects were. I think there was one from Villa Park, maybe in Addison also that we talked about with this. Was there
So
some other projects?
There are three what we call B-list projects. The first was from Wheaton, which was for a water main replacement on 38.
Okay.
The second was from Villa Park, street improvements, right? And Addison also street improvements. Addison And Villa Park, I should point out, also each had two other projects from this round of funding.
Okay,
So Wheaton did not have any. I think Dave can chime in wherever he sees details that I'm not adding in, but I think the concern of staff was if we move to the B list Wheaton project, we don't know what the readiness of that project is. We may lose an additional funding year of, because these projects, the Carroll Stream project is ready to go.
Mhm.
It does serve a pretty significantly high percentage of low income residents. It's surrounded by apartments and senior housing. And so, because of the timing of another project that was canceled, that's exactly the same dollar amount, staff were recommending, and the CDC executive committee did approve this recommendation. The CDC executive committee actually is now recommending that we move forward with the Carroll Stream project. If we move on to the Wheaton project, we are concerned about our timeliness because we don't know what the readiness of that project is.
Mary,
Can I make a comment too?
oh, yeah, yeah.
This project, like Mary said, it's the only park in miles of this low income area, Carroll Stream. And it's very close to the outreach center, which if you guys are familiar with outreach, they serve, underprivileged families and kids and things like that. So this project is really, really, really important for this population in Carroll Stream. So,
Well, yeah, I understand it. I get it. We're putting $600,000 already in and another $400,000. The Illinois Department of Revenue did not give a grant. I'm not sure what the Villa Park and Addison amounts were of their projects. But, I would just like to see the money being distributed kind of evenly across the community rather than, $1 million is a lot for one project. I think we did pads. Did we give pads $1 million too, I think?
Was it, isn't it, don't we, the CDC, we actually had to vote to extend the amount. Mary, can you
Yeah.
speak to that
Yeah.
levels?
Yeah, so 600,000 is typically the cap of projects.
Right,
We
that's
have, and so that's part of the recommendation is to go above and beyond our typical cap. In terms of distribution of funds, as I mentioned, Addison and Villa Park already do have two other projects.
Yeah.
Wheaton does not have a project,
Right.
but I don't know off the top of my head the dollar amounts of the Addison and Villa Park projects. If they have two projects, they probably are each getting about $1 million.
Okay.
I understand your
Yeah, I just wanna make sure,
concern.
yeah.
Absolutely. We did fund nearly every project that's funding here, correct?
So we had, it was a competitive application. We had 19 total applications. 2 were deemed ineligible and 14 were put forth for funding. So Mary's right. Addison would be slated to get about $1.2 million
Okay.
between 2 projects.
Okay.
Villa Park would get about $1.2 million between 2 projects.
Okay.
And then those 3 B-list projects might still happen. This was sort of a timing opportunity where a grant fell through at the same time that they requested additional.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Do you remember Ozark?
I have a non-committee question to ask.
Yeah.
Where is this actually located? Cross streets?
it's Gunderson. It's on Gunderson. I'm sorry, it's on Thornhill, the end of Thornhill.
Okay.
And like the outreach is just 1 block to the north on Gunderson and all, it's full of, there's a senior hall, senior apartments right next to it. Multiple low-income apartment complexes right next to it, so.
Oh, and this is kind of the area northeast of the Home Depot.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Thanks. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Mary.
But I have one more thing, so just for, the only thing I would add is that HUD boxes us in terms of where we can, like, it has to be in an eligible area to spend projects. So the history is that we've spent a ton of money in 5 communities, basically, Glendale Heights, Villa Park, Addison, Bensonville, and West Chicago, that they've gotten the lion's share of our funds.
Okay.
And that's because of HUD's regulations. And so this is actually a project that is outside of those areas, but still eligible. So in that sense, staff was supportive as well.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for the question.
Questions, comments? I gotta say, I'm glad that we're having this conversation. I was at CDC. I think we probably should have had more discussion than we actually did to kind of flush it out. I mean, I did have Dave pull everything for me yesterday, and I mean, I feel comfortable that this really is a great project that is really serving what the project, what this federal dollars is meant to support. But, I'm glad that we have this, that we do flush it out because it's what we're here for, so.
Can I add one more thing? Yes. This is sort of just my own personal opinion. I think street improvements are great. Obviously, water's an
Yeah.
important utility, but parks and recreation, open space for low-income kids in particular, I think is also what CDBG is really all about. It's improving the lives of individuals who are in low and moderate income neighborhoods.
Thank you.
Yes, Member Salmon.
I can just make a quick comment. I actually
Yeah.
grew up in this area, like I grew up in the Covered Bridges apartments that are
Yeah.
right there. And there's not really parks around there. There's the prairie path that most of the parents tell you you're not allowed to go on if you're a kid, 'cause you never know. But
Man.
I just can't, yeah, a little bit. I just can't imagine what a game changer that would have been to have
Yeah.
a big open space, because there's so many apartments right there with so many kids.
Yeah.
I hope we can still get the rest of the B projects done too. I'm sure everyone else does, but I think this location, it's kind of a game changer.
Okay, yeah.
And one more thing about this park, it was actually owned by the village of Carroll Stream for decades until maybe 3-4 years ago when they sold it or ceded it or however they did it over to the park district. So park district hadn't had the opportunity to really do anything with it up until the last few years.
All right, now that we're all feeling good. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. Moving to the Care Center, I'll take a motion to approve HHSR 32822 resolution in support of agreement with the County of DuPage and ATEC ambulance for ambulance medical transport for the Care Center. A motion in a second? Yes, Member Garcia.
A quick question on this. I see that the ATEC is out of, I think, Crystal Lake, I believe, right? Is there a reason we're not using an ambulance service out of DuPage?
Ambulance services for senior nursing facilities is very, very challenging. If it's not making them a lot of money, they back out. We've had 2 that have backed out recently. And I've actually had a discussion with the CEO of one, just saying, hey, can we do this for emergencies? And those, sometimes residents go out to appointments that have to go out by stretcher. So they have to lay flat. Maybe they're getting a PICC line or they have some comorbidity that requires them to be flat. We struggle with getting service. We'll have it set up and they'll cancel at the last minute. So these appointments get put off. It's an awful thing that we're experiencing with this. So the fact that we were able to get somebody, we're constantly looking at others. So.
All right, thank you for clarifying that.
Great, any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Take a motion on HHSP 23422, recommendation for approval of contract to Lakeshore Dairy for fluid dairy for the Care Center and their various campus
Second.
facilities, September 1st, 2022 through August 31st, 2023, not to exceed 116,000. A motion in a second.
Just a question,
Yes.
if I may. I know we've been, Lakeshore Dairy has been our dairy supplier forever since I've been on board. Just curious, have we, looked at other dairy providers or?
It goes through the bid process.
It does, okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good, thank you.
All right, any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. I will take a motion on HHSR
Second.
331-22 resolution recommendation for approval renewal of the IGA with County DuPage and Veterans Assistance Commission through December 31st, 2022. Need a motion? Do we have a second?
Yes.
All right, can I have, I think somebody from the state's attorney maybe just address why, we had approved this as a 4-year agreement last time. I'm sorry that we did that because we've got a little bit of an update.
Certainly. So that first agreement was intended to be the agreement moving forward from January 1st of 2023 onward. However, the statute isn't technically amended until that date. So right now, what we need is something to fill the gap between August 28th, which is the expiration of the current agreement, and December 31st. And during that time, the VAC and the county are in the process of negotiating a new IGA that will satisfy both of their needs.
Okay, so basically what we did last time is the 4-year agreement is really not.
That is being removed. And so there will be another agreement presented in most likely the fall session.
Okay, I just want to make sure that the committee kind of knows what's going, basically the law changed, our responsibilities are going to change, but it also, as Cheryl here, there's going to be legislative session, possibly some changes to the law. I mean, so it's,
Yeah, there may be a trailer bill coming down through the Attorney General that will also maybe push some responsibility and oversight back to the county, but we can't say for sure that'll happen.
so any questions? This is Nick Alfonso.
So just real quick, so the resolution we approved, I think, 2 weeks ago, do we need to rescind that one then at some point, or is that one still gonna stay in effect? I'm So I'm just a little confused on the
So-
process, I guess.
That would be a process question. I think that as of right now, because it was already approved. Go ahead.
You know, we can leave it right now and then we can bring it before the county board later in the year if we decide to go with that one. Otherwise, if we amend it, then we would just file an amended agreement and then we would present that for county board approval
Okay.
later in the year.
I believe we pulled it off the county board agenda. last week,
Correct.
right? So,
Correct.
so even though HHS forwarded it, it hasn't taken effect because the whole board hasn't. voted
Okay,
on it.
thank you, Mary. Thank you. Okay, great.
So any questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Nick and Lisa. All right, moving on to travel, I'll take a motion to approve item 10, authorization for overnight services with Community Services Director to go to NASAD, El Paso County, Colorado, September 18th through the 23rd, 2022, $2,724.50. Motion and second, questions, all in favor? Any opposed? We have one consent item. I'll take a motion to approve, I guess, consent item decrease and close $615,084.20 for Amerisource Bergen drug.
So moved. Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And I do not see any residency waivers today.
Correct.
Yet, we'll move on to the DuPage Care Center update in our budget report. So welcome to know.
Before I begin, I want to talk about our process. We did something a little different this year. We all know COVID started in 2020, and every time we did the budget between 2020 and last year's budget, we just rolled over the same budget. We were optimistic maybe COVID wouldn't have the impact that it did. This year we stopped. Our census is obviously down because of COVID and our inability to take admissions. So I tasked each director to go back and look at their current state of employees, budget based on what they currently have, and then show any that they're looking to hire. So if there were with our census projections for the year, we're expecting to go up a little, but we have that gap for construction that we have to leave that's open. So therefore, our staff, maybe you show that they were hiring 10 staff if they're nursing or 4 staff. So it's really an accurate budget of our current state plus projection, where the last 2 are kind of a carryover. So you'll see, it looks like maybe some of our expenses or staffing went down. It's really more an accurate depiction of current state and not an overly inflated based on a 300 and some census. Does that make sense? Okay, so we'll go ahead and start. So we do have a break-even budget. You can see our patient care revenue, our non-patient care revenue, the indirects, federal grant, we have a county subsidy. So you can see that that comes to 44.5, and I have additional explanation I'll show at the end. And then you can see the expense budget, personnel, commodities, contractual capital. So we're still running around a $44 million operation. So we're going to go to that at the end, if that's okay. So just a revenue point. So our revenues have been significantly impacted by our inability to accept admissions. We are projecting a drop in occupancy by approximately 8%. Due to these restriction of available beds, also because of construction. The budgeted occupancy was 90% based on 368 beds. That's our licensed bed capacity. We actually have 343 set up because we have some that are set up as privates, because that's obviously more preferable for a short stay Medicare population. So you can see our occupancy is set at about 95% on the available 294 beds. This is a stretch goal. We're assuming no additional restrictions, but just not significant restrictions related to COVID, and also the hiring of care for the increased residents. We can't take all these admissions if we don't hire more staff. Revenues by payer are very similar. They include a $984,000 payment for, this is supposed to be the HHS CNA 10-year program related to Medicaid rate reform. And I want to talk about that. So how we're reimbursed by HHS and Medicaid has changed most recently in July. We're still processing that. So based on it's very complex, but our intergovernmental agreement, our Medicaid rate is actually going up about $30 per resident per day under this program, which is excellent. It is, it's a big, so you'll see our Medicaid reimbursement be flat because we're projecting a lower census. So had we not had that Medicaid rate increase and we're projecting a lower census, we would have a couple $1 million more gap. So that's a really good thing. The other component to this Medicaid, there's like 6 different things. Because we are a 5-star quality, we get an additional bump. These are all moving targets. If we drop to a 4-star quality, what we get for a payment on a quarterly basis will change. Right now, just based on our quality rating, we get about another $600,000 a year because of our quality rating. So the CNA tenure program is a program because they know the industry is it's struggling desperately for CNAs. That's the hardest job in the industry. People don't want to be a CNA. So how is the state looking at this? They're looking at a tenure program, meaning not how many years the CNA has been employed at your building, but by how many years they've been a CNA. And they've said that you're going to have a program where if they are a 1 to 2 year experienced CNA, you're going to pay them $1.50 more an hour, all the way up to $6.50 is the max. So you could have CNAs making $23 an hour. However, under this program, Medicaid would reimburse that cost by the percentage of Medicaid in your building. So because we run 80%, that cost will be covered by 80%. So to be able to hire, we've already, just based on rumors, we've had 6 applicants. Because, and so every facility can do this if they participate in Medicaid, but if they have a 50% Medicaid building, they have to cover 50% of that cost. It's much harder for them to do this program. So from a competitive perspective, we're in a great position to really recruit staff and pay them a higher wage and actually get people to work in the business, the part of the business that's the most difficult and challenging. So a lot of information to unpack. I apologize for this. It's kind of, but it's very important to our budget. We did put a placeholder in for this tenure program. We do have the new Medicaid rate represented in there. There's other components as well of this that's still kind of coming out. We're working with our leading age and our consultant through there to kind of work through it's hard. It just came through at the same time we're trying to do the budget. So it's been a stop, drop, and roll. So the rates by payer, we are varied. We anticipate higher rates for Medicaid and private pay, but lower. Medicaid dropped our reimbursement this year, I think by like 1.7%. Okay. And insurance, the MCO rates would remain, insurance and MCO would remain, insurance would stay the same. The subsidy for care center remains at $2 million, which is equal to 4.7% of our total operating budget. And a couple of years ago, we used to get $3 million. But now we decrease that. So you can see the percentage. So if we stay at 85%, that CNA program will be reimbursed at 85%. Guess what we're going to do? Increase our Medicaid census. So if we can get up to 90% or 95%, then that would pay for that program that much higher. So we're 7% private pay, 1% insurance, and 7% Medicare is our projection. Next slide. Thank you. Here's our per diems, what we expect to get reimbursed. So you can see that change in Medicaid. It's going up, even here it's reflected more, but there's a lot of algorithm that goes into that. Private pay per diem, we will be putting forth a 4% increase. We know inflation is much higher than that. We think the industry can sustain only a 4%, and that would come through you for a vote at a later time. Insurance would stay the same at 6%, and then you can see the Medicare per diem would drop down. So we've had pretty good increases in Medicare, and then under the PDPM program and how they reimburse, they feel like they understated the impact, so now they're kind of tightening their belts on what they're reimbursing for Medicare Part A services. We will reference that. Expenses, there's an overall increase of 3.59. We asked each of our staff to put forth a 5% in most cases inflation. So you'll see that is reflected as well. You do see the variances of budgeting for improvement in occupancy. I talked a little bit about that. Personnel is over 3.78%, but that also reflects we did put a placeholder in for 2% COLA, which we do each time. And then there's also a 4% in employee health. So you can see we're still under what you would expect, going up only 3.78 total. Commodities, we did, there's a decrease, but there's a decrease based on our budgeted occupancy. If we're feeding less people, if we're caring for medical supply, you know, all those different drugs. But that also shows we increased it by 5% and it's still down by 4.99. So we did not forget to do an increase there on those inflation costs. Contractual expenses, that was a decrease in contingencies. If you recall, we kept under the contingency categories where we carried over that For the union members, their 2% COLA, we kept carrying it over each year. We had that tucked under in contingencies to make sure we always had those funds available. And now that's no longer there, so that's why you'll see that decrease. The capital allocation, so now we're actually showing the CBDG grants. We're putting it in as the expense and the revenue. There's a revenue offset, so you'll see that increase shows like we're going up, but it's really just different calculation for accounting purposes. All right, and then you want to show that, yep. So this kind of shows by category, and I have a copy of this if you'd like to look at it, but you can see the different variances and for all different various reasons, which I really went through, but if anything stands out and you want to go through that, that talks about all of our earnings. We're trying to get the cafeterias back up and running. They were budgeted at a higher optimistic rate, and now we're budgeting at a more realistic and trying to revamp that. Pharmacy earnings, again, if you have less residents, you're going to have less meds, but that still shows a what, 5? Did we do 5 or higher on that one?
We did 5%.
5% on medications. And then here's your revenue components that I talked about. And then you have your miscellaneous. These are normal placeholders that we have. And so it comes to the 43.5. And then you get into your salaries. So here's where it might look odd. We're going up in regular salaries because we're hoping to hire from our current state. Therefore, you're going to have an offset of reduced overtime, reduced part-time help, all those things we're hoping to go down. Keep in mind that CNA tenure program is in here as a placeholder, but it is not in here. It's under a different category. So if that were the case, this number would definitely go up because right now we're in crisis. We're using about 12 agency on a day shift. That seems to be our lowest filled shift right now. We're paying crisis rate often, about $53 an hour for a CNA. And they've learned to work the system. And I don't know if you've heard the government talk about price gouging for agency. You know, all these people, CNAs are leaving facilities to go work for, because they make probably $30. Man, they don't get the whole 53, obviously, but they're leaving to go work in those environments because the money's so great, but they're not getting benefits. And that's what's unfortunate. So they're taking that risk. But so we're hoping that we'll be able to capture and hire based on that new program. We did our appropriate IMRF, Social Security, based on guidance, and I'm trying to see if anything else stands out. Drugs and vaccines, again, we talked about that. That would be going down. That covers questions for me. I know it's a lot to unpack. Yes, ma'am.
I have to run, but I'm a little alarmed to hear you say capture and hire. That seems a little.
It's dog eat dog.
No, I'm sorry, but great job.
Yeah, thank you.
Lots to
Thank you.
deal with right now.
Thank you.
I have to run.
Yep.
Sorry. Thank you.
I have to run too, so I'd like to just say that on a different note, not your budget, but some of us attended a meeting yesterday about the capital project. And I just want to say that it's going to be a little bit more than the 22 million that you talked about. But I think that the care center is a gem in our community. And it was built in 1888 and it hasn't been upgraded in decades.
Right.
And so I am fully in support of this capital project. And in fact, it's my, plan B to go live when I'm. So I really support.
Well, I'll be
the
there together.
campaign. And I'm sorry that I have to go
Thank
to a different meeting.
No, thank you.
Just briefly on your budget, thank you. I think being able to only do a less than 4% increase with the chaos that has been your work all the last
Yes.
years is pretty impressive. And thank you for sort of taking this deep dive and really thinking about what are all the complexities that COVID's given us. And I'm so sorry that legislation changed right as you were getting ready to do that.
We'll take it. I mean,
But at least it's in your benefit.
it is
so.
definitely, it's been years in the making. There were years we'd have a 6%, like, okay, your Medicaid rate's going down 7%. You're asked to look at all your meat costs in every
Yeah.
facility just to see, to try and
They have milk
recoup.
every year. That's right. So, yeah, thank you. That's
Yep.
impressive.
Any other questions? Janelle, can you possibly send that presentation to all of us?
Yep.
Would you mind? All right, great,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, great job. I have one question though, that 80% subsidy, I should say, for the CNA. thing.
Yes,
Does that affect, I mean, aren't we running programs right now so CNAs can become higher level nurses? I mean,
Yes.
like, so now we have a tension there, so.
you're right. There very well could be a compression issue, which we're working with Dave Miller, and that will all have to go through like a memorandum of understanding. We may have to negotiate that, obviously, with ASME. It does. But one, the state's reimbursing for CNAs. The state's not reimbursing for LPNs and RNs. And it's because nobody wants to work as a CNA. So I appreciate that, but if we can't go and raise everybody's rates correspondingly, nobody wants to be a CNA. And this is the whole state's approach to that.
I get it, I'm seeing
I
there's
agree.
a.
We're looking at, I'm running those numbers too, just to look at any compression and potentials.
Great, well,
Yep.
thank you very much.
Thank
then.
you.
And I'm gonna squeeze in, I understand I skipped public comment, so do we have any public comment?
No.
All right, let's check that off. And then Mary Keating.
I don't really have anything all that major today. I just wanted to thank this committee for your support of my budget presentation. I am working with finance and HR on effectuating those equity changes that we talked about. So I'm hoping that we'll get that happening probably in September. So I just wanted to say thanks for your support. And I want to congratulate Janelle on an awesome budget presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Really good,
Thank you.
really good. I thought my budget was complicated.
Oh, it's, yeah, I didn't even get into that.
So that's all I have.
Thank you.
All right, great. Do we have any old business? Do we have any new business? Yeah, I just want to say, Janelle, thank you. And I do appreciate the way you broke down some of that Medicare. I know we talked about that, and I mean, it does help all of us in this committee to
That's
understand.
all. Yeah, a whole separate meeting, probably.
But I mean, you know, it's great jumping off point, so I do appreciate that. So, all right, I'll take motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right, great, we are done. Thank you, everyone.